Welcome, Magnus here, and if you're new to this channel, definitely consider subscribing. I talk about nostalgic games as well as games that come back into relevance. Now, this is a nostalgia kick in the butt that we're all dealing with. I'm sure you've all heard that the PlayStation Network is shutting down PSP, PS3, and PS Vita stores starting this summer. And the whole point of it is like, why would you do that? First of all, a sigh of relief was breathed, at least by me, because I made a video previously talking about how when you purchase digital games, you know, I actually prefer that versus physical media. And the reason is because it's easier to pick up and play, and you have it installed on your equipment, and then you're good. Well, with this announcement, they reassured everyone that has purchased games in the past for these systems that you can still continuously download everything that you've purchased. Yes, it stinks that you can't buy new games after a certain amount of time, and especially if you hear of a game that's relevant for PS3 or PSP or PS Vita, you're kind of stuck because now you can't download it and give your money to PlayStation. You have to either get it on the used market or basically custom firmware. Anyone? Sony's not going to run their stores for those older consoles, and that leaves anyone who wants to buy new games for those old systems pretty much screwed unless you buy physical media. Now, all three of those consoles, PSP, PS3, and PS Vita, support physical media, but especially in the PS Vita's existence, and then there was the PSP Go, of course, that some people might have bought, and they have no choice but to download games. But PS Vita itself also, unfortunately, many of the games, especially that were coming out as soon as recently as this year, they don't have physical media. They are only download only, and a lot of third-party developers, especially indie developers, depended on Vita because Vita was still a console that some of us played to this day, including me. I play PS Vita at least 5 or 6 times a week. I never put this thing down since 2012 when I picked up the PS Vita, so it's definitely my go-to. So yes, this is tragic, this is sad news, and it's almost like Sony's saying, hey, you know what, might as well go to the custom firmware route because we're not going to support those games. But why would they do this? Why would they do this so suddenly? Well, there's a little bit of a past here that I remember with Sony, which kind of makes sense and why they would want to transition to this route. And it's an upcoming update that we should all keep our eyes out for. Now, back when the PlayStation 3 was relevant, we had the PlayStation Network first launch back in 2006. And the PlayStation Network was meant so that you could download games and you could download media virtually online, just like Xbox was allowing you to do already with their Xbox 360. Sony wanted to jump in on this market. Now, their store was very primitive. It was like web-based until they finally designed their own custom application-based PlayStation Store, which actually looked a bit more usable. And then that store was then migrated to the PSP because the PSP didn't really have an online store, but then it created an online store with a firmware update that actually closely matched the PS3 store. Now, it looks completely different than the way it looked today, but it had its own thing. Fast forward a few years later, PlayStation decided to upgrade their PlayStation Store again. Now, this was quite a few years later, and why did they do this? It was when the PS4 launched, and it was slightly before the PS4 launched. So when the PS3 updated the PlayStation Store, that store was very slow and clunky. But the reason they did this was because they wanted to reimagine their store to support the new hardware in the PlayStation 4. So when the PlayStation 4 came out, the PlayStation Store ran a lot more smoothly than the PlayStation 3 store. I mean, to this day, the PlayStation 3 the store for the PlayStation Network on the PS3 runs incredibly slow because the PlayStation 3 was not designed to run with that software. But PS4, from the ground up, its hardware was designed to run with that store. That's why they upgraded the store, to support the new hardware. Now, one would think the reason that they're eliminating support for PlayStation 3, PSP, and PS Vita, because Vita has its own store interface, but it's still somewhat reminiscent of the PlayStation 3 and PlayStation 4 stores, though it's a much more portable version. So it's really not the same because it's meant to be touch interface, but still kind of remnants are there. Now you have the PlayStation 5, and the PlayStation 5 has its own store that kind of mimics, from what I've heard, kind of mimics PS4, PS3. But it looks like Sony wants to upgrade their store layout. They've had that layout since, I believe, 2012. And it's high time that they renovate the store, make it a lot more interactive, and make it custom like they did for the PlayStation 4. Make one that is custom for the PlayStation 5. Now that means that the PlayStation 4 store, when they open, might not be as user-friendly, or it might actually slow down a bit, which will push you to get the PlayStation 5. PlayStation 4 will get that update because it's still relevant as of today. But if the PlayStation 3 runs slow with the current PlayStation Store, it basically would not run at all with their, of course, upcoming planned PlayStation Store update that you'll see, which is the reason why they're doing this. So they're deciding, you know what, supporting that older store is not something that we want to do, because they haven't really done that. They didn't support PlayStation 3 with just running the legacy store and just letting that go. No, they wanted to upgrade it, because if you keep it running the old way, it kind of doesn't continue to follow the PlayStation's ever-changing, I guess, brand name and what their brand message is, because brand messages change over the years, and they want to be consistent with that brand message. Now that brand message, as it evolves, if you're not evolving the store itself with it, it kind of almost dies. It becomes legacy. So rather than do that, and a lot of these video game companies do this, they're just shutting it off and saying, okay, that's it. But you can still download your old stuff. You just can't get anything new because we're not supporting that anymore. Is it an excuse? Should they have done something to customize it? They could have done something to customize those older consoles. But is it worth the investment, especially when they're gearing their market towards new consoles? And that's what they really want to focus on. And that's kind of the reason why. It's the fact that they're redesigning the PlayStation Store, and you'll see that coming soon, after or maybe before these other stores are shut down, because you're going to see a redesign for the PS4 and PS5 PlayStation stores. So is it sad? Yeah. Is custom firmware going to become more of a relevant thing? Yeah, more than likely for those old consoles. Am I too upset about it? Not really. I haven't bought a PlayStation 3 or a PS Vita game in the longest. I'm kind of nostalgic for the games that I already own, whether it be on disc or actually installed on the hard drive. And as long as I can keep downloading them, I'm okay. And if they do announce that you can no longer download these games after a certain date, then I'll be mad. I'll want some sort of way to be able to play it on new consoles and not to take it away from me permanently, because I bought the license to be able to play those games. I should have a right to them. So that's what I think. But what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below. And I do have another game sales episode coming up, and it's taking a few rewrites. That's why it's taking a little bit long time, but that'll be my next video. You'll see it coming soon next week. But that's it. As always, let me know what your comments are. And yeah, it's pretty sad, but that's why they're doing it. As always, you can make my day if you subscribe today. This is Magnus, and I'm out. See you guys later. Bye-bye.